I will be your host for tonight's Stand with Ukraine Vigil here at Veterans Square at Whitehorse City Hall. Tonight's vigil to mark 3 years of Putin's illegal and immoral attempted annexation of Ukraine is hosted by the volunteers of the Ukrainian Canadian Association of Yukon, who have come together over the past few years to do our part to help the sovereign nation of Ukraine. We would like to acknowledge that our fundraising, humanitarian efforts, and public awareness events, such as tonight's vigil, take place on the traditional territory of the Kwalindun First Nation and the Tonquachon Council. Thank you. At this time, I would like to welcome Elder with the Kwalindun First Nation, Jesse Dawson, to the microphone to open tonight's vigil with a prayer.
And I'm honored to see you all. Really happy to see some familiar faces out there. It's good to see you, Masicho. Creator, Grandfather, Grandmother, the sacred four directions, we stand here before you in prayer and we say, Masicho, Kunas, and thank you for what we have in our lives, Creator. But we ask you to be with those ones that are out there having a hard time. Help them find the tools they need to help them make it through a day. Creator, watch over our elders, our babies here as we are home. We're in a place called home, which is peaceful, quiet, and beautiful. But Creator, as we stand here, we have people from Ukraine in our minds and think about the devastation, the tragedies they're facing over in Ukraine. For myself, Creator, I can't imagine. I come from a safe place, a peaceful place, but I ask you to be with them, hold them up as they need our strength. They need to know that we're here and that we care. Creator, they have families here. Hold the family members up as they are quite worried about their loved ones, their friends, and their communities. And Creator, I ask for blessings for the organizers of this event. And we need things like this to remind us that there are other things happening in other parts of the world. And Creator, as we stand here, I ask you for blessings and prayers for each and every one of us here. Guide us home safely to our loved ones, our families, our friends, and our communities. And let them know that we're here and that we care. Watch over the ones that are going through a loss, Creator. Comfort them and let them know they're not alone and that we're here. And Creator, once again, I ask for blessings for the organizers of this event and watch over the people there and prayers to them that things will get better. As I believe there is, I have hope there is a brighter future for all. And once again, Creator, I say, Masicho, Kunas, and thank you.
Thank you. It is truly an honor to have you open our vigil this evening. Well, now we would like to have the Ukraine national anthem play.
Ні слава, ні воля, ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануєм ми, браття, у своїй сторонці, душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.
Over the past 3 years, UK has felt the support of Yukoners, from monetary donations to attending our fundraising events, to support from our levels of government. We thank everyone for their support. At this time, I'd like to call forward Yukon's Member of Parliament, Brendan Hanley, to provide some remarks.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, everyone. And thanks for gathering here tonight, and thank you to those, Timothy and Elder Jesse, who have spoken, as always, who have helped to bring us together. I'm very grateful to be here on traditional territory of Kwamandun First Nation and Tanquanchan Council. Hard to believe, isn't it, that today, or at least yesterday, marked 3 years since Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine. And in these years, we've witnessed, amidst the devastation, incredible courage, resilience, and yes, sacrifice from the Ukrainian people. They fought not only for their freedom, but for the very values that bind all of us together: freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. We stand with Ukraine while we continue to aspire to a just and fair end to this war. We believe in a future where Ukraine stands strong, independent, and free from aggression. I want to take a moment to thank the Ukrainian-Canadian Association of Yukon, UK, for organizing the Vigil and for all the ways that they have supported Ukraine throughout these trying times. Your leadership has been invaluable, including the amazing aid trip that you four, Grant and Lesia Nachu and Anastasia Matlachevska and Eileen Melnichuk took late last year. For the last 3 years, Russian forces thought Ukraine would fall, but Ukraine is still standing, and so are we, standing with them today, tomorrow, and for as long as it takes. It's incumbent on each one of us in our daily actions and conversations to work against the dark forces that threaten democracy and work together towards the peace that the world so desperately needs. I'll just end on that note. I was just listening to some news, and I heard a quote from President Zelensky where he, to paraphrase, but it was something like, Putin will not give us peace. We will win peace. We will win our peace with strength and with wisdom and with unity. I think those are words that we can also take as Canadians facing the threats that we have and having a little taste of what it has been like for 3 years for Ukraine to experience on so much more a devastating scale. So let us stand with wisdom, strength, united with the people of Ukraine. Slava Ukraini. Thank you, Tim.
Has been standing with Ukraine since the early days of the invasion, and we see and acknowledge those efforts. Thank you to MP Hanley for your words and for attending this evening. Now, I would like to call forward from the Yukon government, Minister Nils Clark.
Thank you very much, Tim, and thank you to the Ukrainian-Canadian Association of Yukon for hosting this important event. I'd just like to acknowledge, and I apologize if I haven't seen everybody in the crowd, but my colleagues, Minister John Stryker, MLA Brad Cathers, MLA Kate White, and I think Councillors Morris and Cortanius, So it's an honor to attend this evening on behalf of the Yukon government. Premier Play was here previously, but he had another engagement, but certainly he has been a steadfast supporter of UK as well. Thank you to the Kwamandun First Nation and the Tanquanchan Council, whose traditional territory we gather on today. As MP Hanley indicated, we are gathered this evening to mark a solemn milestone, the 3rd anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We remember the events that forever altered the lives of millions of Ukrainians. We think of our brothers and sisters in Whitehorse's sister city of Kharkiv, and how they continue to provide shelter to displaced persons and community to their people in the face of unimaginable challenges. And we think of the Ukrainian community here in the Yukon. Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine has had a profound and lasting impact, not only on the people of Ukraine, but on the entire international community. In the 3 years since, the conflict has wrought unimaginable suffering, families have been displaced, communities shattered, and lives irrevocably changed. And seeing so many of you here today, I know that the Yukon has not forgotten. We stand in unwavering solidarity with the Ukrainian people yesterday, today, and always. Their struggle for sovereignty and justice is a beacon of hope that inspires us all. Our shared values of respect, inclusivity, and justice compel us to denounce aggression everywhere in all its forms. When the rights of one nation are violated, the rights of all people everywhere are at stake. Our collective commitment extends beyond words. The Yukon government, the Ukrainian Canadian Association of Yukon, and many individual Yukoners have worked to provide humanitarian aid and support global efforts to uphold human rights and to defend democracy in Ukraine. As we look to the future, we draw strength from the enduring resilience of the Ukrainian people. Their fight against oppression reminds us that every act of courage contributes to building a better future. Let us remain vigilant in our pursuit of peace, and let this anniversary serve as a call to action, a reminder that the struggle for freedom is ongoing and that our collective efforts can make a lasting difference. In closing, I reaffirm Yukon's steadfast commitment to Ukraine and to peace, justice, and human dignity. The Yukon stands united with Ukraine today and always, and we remain determined to support a world where every nation can enjoy the inalienable right to live free from aggression and tyranny. Slava Ukraini. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I just want to mention from the outset of the invasion 3 years ago, the Yukon government quickly stepped forward by setting up a Ukraine help desk to help displaced Ukrainians settle in the Yukon. Thank you to the territorial government for their efforts, and thank you to Minister Clark for his words this evening. We will now hear from the leader of the third party, Kate White.
Thanks, Tim. So it was nearly 3 years ago that a neighbor, Svetlana, reached out to me and said that we needed to do something. We needed to come together as a community because the unimaginable had happened. Because in this day and age, we don't imagine that a country is going to be invaded by their neighbor. And 3 years ago, you came out, and it was much colder, and it was a very sunny, beautiful day in February. And at that point in time, we didn't know that we'd be here 3 years later to mark the devastation, to mark the absolute cruelty that we've seen in the world. But we're here, and we're still here. And the lessons that I've learned from my friends, the friends who've gone from here, or my friend Francis, who's been working in Kharkiv at a volunteer kitchen where they make 2,000 meals a day, was he said that more than ever, the world needs to be reminded that Ukrainians are still suffering, that they're still living through the consequences of a devastating and illegal war. And it's important to know right now that maybe for those of us in Canada who never imagined, for the first time you're asking yourself, if the threat of invasion is real, what will we do in response? What will we do? Will we be brave like the Ukrainians? Will we stand tall like the Ukrainians? Will we learn from our friends and our family members in the Ukraine? So we think about our family on the other side of the world, and we think about the sacrifice And we think about the resilience, and we think about the love, and we think about the passion in which they stand strong. So today I celebrate Ukraine and all they stand for. And I celebrate the strength and the leadership that they continue to show us. Glory to the Ukraine.
Now we will hear from the City of Whitehorse and Deputy Mayor Lenore Morris.
Good evening. It's great to see so many people out here today. I'm here on behalf of the city in part because the mayor, Kirk Cameron, is traveling right now, but I was particularly thrilled when I was asked to step in because I, like many Canadians, am of Ukrainian descent. My great-grandparents immigrated from Ukraine in 1910, along with my grandmother and her brother. They were part of a wave of Ukrainians who came to Canada in the early 20th century. Canada, like the Ukraine, is a small country that has a powerful neighbor next to it. And although we've been very unhappy with our neighbor recently, I think there's obviously no comparison yet between the two of them. But what I see is that both countries are dependent on an international rules-based order for our existence, an order that says might is not right, that there are rules, there are laws, there's borders, and the powerful countries can't just take what they want. So Ukraine has been fighting for its existence for the last 3 years, but it's also fighting for the existence of every small country, in particular every small country with a powerful, aggressive neighbors. In Canada and in the Yukon and here in Whitehorse, I'm very, very proud at how many people have stepped up to help Ukraine. But for me, I am most grateful to Ukraine for stepping up for the world and doing what needed to be done in standing up to a powerful neighbor.
Thank you. UK appreciates the city's sister city designation for Kharkiv, Ukraine. I know our mayor has been in recent contact with the mayor of Kharkiv, and we thank the city for all they have done to support Kharkiv and Ukraine. Thank you to Deputy Mayor Morris for your words this evening. Thank you. I also want to recognize other elected officials who are attending tonight. I know Minister Clark pointed out a few. We also have official opposition MLA Brad Cathers, some of the councillors that were mentioned. Councillor Galina, I see you in the back. Councillor Melichuk is here. And Ann Midler, Councillor Midler. Perfect. All right. Thanks. I just wanted to acknowledge your presence here today. Thank you so much. As you know, 4 members of UK embarked on a humanitarian mission to Ukraine in November. One of those who made the incredible journey was Lesia Nachu. I would like to call Lesia forward now to give some remarks.
I'd like to thank each and every one of you who's here today standing together in solidarity with Ukraine. This is amazing to see so many people. Thank you. It has been 3 years since Russia launched its full-scale invasion, and 11 years since Russia invaded and illegally occupied Ukraine's Crimea and Donbas regions. As we gather on this solemn anniversary, we remember the tens of thousands of Ukrainians who have lost their lives and who have courageously and heroically defended their country and the freedom of Europe from Russia's genocidal war. For years, the Kremlin and its apologists have spread lies, calling it a civil war, delegitimizing Ukraine's democratically elected leaders, spreading lies about corruption, and blaming the war on the West. Russia's illegal occupation and its destruction of Ukraine and the rules-based international order is a clear threat to all democracies around the world. For centuries, Russia has sought to erase Ukraine, to crush the Ukrainian language, the Ukrainian culture, and Ukraine's very identity. Today, they continue this brutal campaign. Russia thought that they were embarking on a war of conquest that would last 3 days. Instead, 3 years later, Ukraine stands. Kyiv, the capital, is free, and the Ukrainian people stand united in defiance to Russian tyranny, and we stand with Ukraine. We must be absolutely clear. Russia will not stop unless it is defeated. Russia must be brought to justice. There is no peace without Ukraine's victory. Ukraine must restore its internationally recognized borders. This is Ukraine's right. It's enshrined in the United Nations Charter. The tyrants, Putin, and now, I so boldly say Trump, is also a tyrant, cannot be allowed to redraw borders by force or pressure Ukraine to surrender. Trump cannot be allowed to blackmail Ukraine into signing over its natural resources, nor should Elon Musk be allowed to threaten to cut off Starlink to Ukraine. We must never allow lawlessness and brutality prevail. There can be no compromise with genocide. Canada's Parliament has unanimously recognized that the Russian Federation is committing acts of genocide against the Ukrainian people. In Ukrainian cities and towns under occupation, Russia tortures and executes Ukrainian civilians. Russian soldiers are raping Ukrainian women and children. Russia is abducting Ukrainian children and forcing them into re-education camps. Russia is trying to erase the Ukrainian identity and culture of a generation of Ukrainian children. While Ukrainian authorities have been able to identify over 20,000 children that have been stolen by Russia, the total number is far, far higher. Ukraine has documented over 156,000 war crimes and crimes of aggression that have been committed by Russia since February 24th, 2022. This is not a conflict where deals can be made. You cannot negotiate with someone who wants to destroy you. For Ukrainians, this is a matter of life or death, and they have made a choice. They choose to live, they choose to fight, they choose freedom, and we are standing here in solidarity with them. It's crystal clear that we can no longer depend on the United States as a reliable ally or partner. Trump has betrayed Ukraine, and in the last several days, we've seen the progression. He has betrayed Ukraine, he's betrayed Canada, and he has betrayed the rest of the democratic world. It is critically important that Canadian and EU leaders quickly develop a united path forward. Canada must begin to dedicate the necessary resources both to protect ourselves and to help Ukraine to defend the freedom of Europe. Anything short of Ukrainian victory is inviting further invasion from Ukraine, but this time into NATO countries, which will then require Canadians to put boots on the ground to defend our NATO allies. We have to really think about that and let that sit. Ukraine needs more weapons and far more economic support than we have provided for them to win this war. The only way this war will end is with victory for Ukraine. I'd like to leave you with an excerpt from a recent article that was written by the editor-in-chief of the Kyiv Independent, Olha Rudenko. She writes, I know the resilience of the Ukrainian people, the special internal strength that comes with the centuries of defying the odds, of surviving despite the forces that seek to eliminate you. I feel it in myself and in everyone around me, both in native Ukrainians and our allies. That strength is something no one can take from us, not even two of the most powerful leaders in the world working together. Presidents and leaders can try to sell us out, either for personal gains or out of sheer cowardice. But I know that there are many millions of people around the world who stand with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini! Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes.
Thank you. Some extremely powerful words, Alicia, and thank you as always for going above and beyond for our group. Now, I believe we will hear from Katerina Osipova. Katerina is from Ukraine and is now settled in.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lesia, for this powerful speech. It was like so like overwhelming. That's why I will be reading, not like telling, because all of that is so like touching me just to the heart. So a year ago, I arrived in Yukon, and far from home, but having Ukraine in my heart, I, like so many of us, left everything I knew, like at home, everything I had familiar, like my family, friends, but yet no distance can separate me from my heritage, from our homeland, and from the pain of war, and from the love we hold for those who are still fighting. 3 years of war have brought immense loss, but they have also shown that we have unbreakable spirit of Ukraine, of our people. And Ukraine stands not just because of those on the front line who we for sure respect and who we pray for daily, but also for every one of us who refuses to give up, who refuses to forget. So, and to the Yukon community, I want to thank each and every one of you standing with us and providing that light in the darkness. In the darkest times, kindness and solidarity shine. We may be far, but we're not powerless. Let us keep Ukraine in our voices, in our actions, in our hearts. Because as long as we remember, as long as we support, Ukraine remains unshaken. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you for attending tonight's vigil, Katerina.
UK member Grant Zazula was also on November's mission to Ukraine. I have been a part of the UK board for less than a year, and all I can say is I wish I had half of Grant's enthusiasm and passion for Ukraine. I'd like to call up Grant now for a special poem.
I was asked to say a poem tonight about Ukraine and about the situation and the war. And whenever I think about these matters, I always want to go back to history, because this is a book that I think a lot of you probably have a copy of. Show me your hands if you have a copy of this in your house. You probably grew up with one, the Kobzar. It's maybe second to the Bible in Ukraine. And you can't think about Ukrainian culture without Taras Shevchenko. And he's really kind of the patron saint of Ukrainian culture. It's impossible to think about Ukraine without Taras. So I will recite his poem, Zapovit, the Testament. And I think this is his most popular poem. It was written while he was imprisoned in a Russian jail in the late 1840s. When I die, then bury me atop a mound, amid the steppes' expanse, in my beloved Ukraine, so I may see the broad fields, the Dnipro and the cliffs, so I may hear the river roar when it carries hostile blood. From Ukraine into the Azure Sea, I'll then forsake the fields, the hills, I'll leave it all, taking wing to pray to God himself. Till then I know not God. Bury me, rise up, break your chains, then sprinkle liberty with hostile wicked blood. And in a great new family, a family of the free, forget not to remember me with a gentle and kind word. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant, for that tonight. When preparing for tonight's vigil, I wanted to highlight and bring home for Yukoners you hear today the sacrifices in the number of lives lost in this brutal and unjust invasion. However, in my research, I could not find a definitive number. All we know at this time is that many hundreds of thousands of people have lost their lives in a war which Putin said was only supposed to take 3 days. It's been the resilience of the Ukrainian people and Ukraine's allies, such as Canada and many other countries, that have pushed back Putin and his band of thugs for 3 years. We would now like to observe a moment of silence for the loss of innocent lives and the brave men and women on the front lines defending Ukraine.
Гей, плине кача по тисині, плине кача по тисині. Мамко ж моя, не лай мені, мамко ж моя, не лай мені. Ей, залаєш ми в злу годину, залаєш ми в злу годину. Сам не знаю, де погину, сам не знаю, де погину. Гей, погину я в чужім краю, погину я в чужім краю.
In closing this evening, I have one thought that's been on my mind actually for the last few years as world events have played out. I've been thinking of a famous quote from Winston Churchill as part of a speech to a 1948 sitting of the British House of Commons. You probably know this quote. Those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. This is why in these uncertain geopolitical times, everyone, from the highest leaders of the land to our children in grade school, needs to be reminded of what has happened in the past. The attempted power grabs, the attempted land grabs, the manipulation of propaganda, the sheer madness of times that devolved peace into conscription and armed battles. This world has been there. For the sake of humanity, let's not go there again. Slava Ukraini. Glory to Ukraine.
Glory to the heroes.
Thank you all for coming this evening.
На березі річки, якої давно вже немає.